Hello, and welcome to Inside News with Dale Matthews and Mike Jones. It is this thing that's over my shoulder is just about perfect for today because
Mm.
it follows yesterday's May Day, which of course has two meanings, and this is how the commissioners have decided that we will not be able to use any of the lifeboats because, Mike, that's not a permanent solution.
Yes.
So until the Carpathia gets here, sorry guys, until the rescue ship gets here, we're all in the cold water and we
Yes.
can't get into even temporary lifeboats because temporary does not solve the problem permanently.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Yeah, kind of. So, what were some of the things that you saw out there today, Mike?
That I saw out there. Let's see here. I saw a big container in the ground and a bunch of buckets with tomatoes that I raised lovingly from seeds.
Now
And
we're talking.
and I got all my Dutch buckets all set up. I'm just about ready to, and the only thing left to do is a couple of supply tubes and hook up the timer, and I'm good to go. It's all on automatic. It'll take off and do crazy things.
Now,
So that's what I saw today.
I've been trying to encourage Mike to do a separate little thing, maybe one time about how you can do what he's doing at home with tomatoes and salad, and he's actually growing salad dressing um, and paper plates. The whole thing, it's all going to come dripping into one container.
And some of those things are really hard to get seeds for.
Yeah, buddy, that's the hard part.
Yes.
Um, So we've noticed that there are a number of signs around town. This is a show about politics, and we've noticed there are a number of signs
And
around
there's somebody
town.
calling about politics now.
Some people may not know we're doing a show, but that's okay. I'll get
Yeah.
back to it. And one of the
It's
things,
busy in the inside newsroom.
yes.
I wish
And
one of the staffers had answered that call.
oh, she's answering it now. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
that's it. Yes, that's
I'll
good.
get right back to him. It's the president. Yeah, I'll get. Don't tell him I'll get back to him.
Yes.
So one of the things that I've seen is a number of the signs are out there illegally. Not all of them, but a number of them are.
Mm.
And I'm not going to even bother telling you who this one person is because you probably already know all about it. And that guy was putting out his signs illegal. And I said, now, these signs are put here illegally. You're not allowed to put them there. Well, but it's hard finding places to put signs. I said, I understand that. I definitely understand that. But we're supposed to be the good guys, and we don't break the law. We don't do what Keith Heck does. Okay, I mean, if you're going to run against that kind of bureaucracy, that kind of commissioner, Cheryl Walker or Keith Heck, you don't break the law. And this is the
Mm.
fellow that told me, but if I don't break the law about placement of signs, then I won't get elected. Then you've already lost.
Yeah, I think there's probably your friend who you're speaking of has a lot of company in that department. I've seen a number of signs that are placed. You know what? There's one area near my house by the highway where somebody put a sign in there, and then a bunch of people just. I think there's probably one in there from half the candidates now, and it's just. I
If the
guess.
one guy has permission, then they
Yeah.
should too.
Yeah.
No, and you know this, and everybody out there knows this. You ask permission before you put some on somebody's property, and if it's state property, you can't ask permission because they won't let you. And this guy's
Right.
putting signs on state property. He's put
Yeah.
they were before. And he said, well, why do you have to tell everybody? I said, first, we're a show about politics. And second, we're supposed to be the good guys. And good guys don't do that. Right?
Yeah. I have this little strip. I believe is in the uh, It's a state highway setback.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what it is. In any event, oh, listen, we were talking about this the other night, and we brought up the signs that you see around and how you might want to look into people's funding and stuff like that. And because of the fact that we talked about the big marquee sign that's down on the corner of Parkway and M, I got an
illegal or anything like that. Okay.
Yeah, no, there's nothing illegal there. But we were talking about funding and how that seemed like that might cost a lot of money. Apparently, that cost $450 to put together. Bill Hunker sent me an email telling me that him and Joseph Rice and who's Ward Ockenden, and I think it was a couple other people, went out there and set the thing up themselves. And so he just wanted to make clear where all the money was coming from and everything. And so there you go.
Okay. All right, let's be crystal clear then. They had a couple of signs across the street at Peterson, which is right across the Parkway from Ward Ockenden's property at Parkway and M.
Right.
And they had some of their signs there, and Ron Smith, not Raymond Smith, Ron Smith had a sign there. And according to the Petersons, Joseph Rice came in, found that he felt that the sign from Ron Smith was not proper, and tore it down.
Now was it Joseph Rice that they saw doing that, or was it Ward Ockenden?
No, it was according to what they told me. And see, they could be mixed up. I'm just going to tell you what they told me. It was Joseph Rice that took it down. Now, did he mean when he was saying to him that he had his guys take it down? Did he mean that he had Ward take it down? Did he mean that he had two boys and a dog take it down? I don't know, but
doesn't really matter.
They said that he did take it down. So their response was, your signs are no longer allowed on our property.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Don't touch somebody else's signs. What's the matter with you? Okay.
Yeah, because
that says something to me about the kinds of people. It says something about their zealousness for getting elected. Okay. But it also says something about, there's certain things we all learned in elementary school. And one of them is don't eat somebody else's lunch. And another is, if it's not yours, don't be fooling with it.
I don't remember having to be lectured about the eating of other people's lunch, but okay.
Well, we had that problem. And somebody actually did apparently make up some chocolate chip cookies. What kind of parents do this? They actually apparently did make up some chocolate because there was a school notice that went out. Chocolate chip cookies that were made out of X-Lax instead of chocolate.
Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, what, to get back at people for stealing food?
That problem stopped.
I bet it did. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like an apocryphal tale from the internet, but it did happen. There was a notice that went out. So that was a little weird, but just obey the law. It's such a simple law. Come on, you guys. Okay. So anyway, I'm not saying that anybody broke. Well, yeah, I am saying some people are breaking the law. And, in the overall scheme of things, what does it matter, et cetera, et cetera? Well, it's an insight onto certain people's personalities. And if they're willing to do this, what else are they willing to do? And I don't like it. So anyway, that's my rant, so to speak, for the day. And now we've got a little bit more to show. Now, you may say, well, I've seen a lot from the budget. Well, it's not over, buddy. There's going to be one more budget meeting. Very interesting. It's going to be on Election Day. That's the point at which what Bill Meyer wanted me to talk about this morning, because I go on every Monday morning at 6:35. He wanted me to talk about what's this thing about the 6:35, the raises, potential raises for commissioners. Mm-hmm. We had talked about that last night, how Larry West, who is head of the Elected Officials Compensation Committee, feels that he said, now let's not mention any names. And then he goes and he mentions the name. Says, well, Simon Hare, for example, has done a real good job of bringing the other two commissioners up to speed about how to do things. You think he's done a good job of that? I mean, yes, they're all breaking the law together along with Wally Hicks, who's just sitting there watching them break the law. He's participating. So the OGEC does not like to go up against lawyers, although he's the only elected lawyer in the state. Anyway, he feels that he's done such a good job. And Bill said, "Do you think they're really going to do that?" I said, "No. What they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, listen, we're virtuous people, and we're going to turn down this generous and quite accurate offer of more money." Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's all that's going to happen.
Well, that's exactly what they did last year, as I recall. Yeah. Is that not correct? Yeah.
This one was different. This one was extolling the virtues of one particular person, saying, and it was brought up by J.J. Schofield, the HR director, who specifically inserted that into their conversation on his own without anybody asking him to do so, as far as I know. And it was all about more compensation the longer you're in office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, buddy.
Again, if we're in a public safety fiscal emergency, why would be listen? Why wouldn't you go out to people and say, "Hey, listen, we're in a public safety fiscal emergency, and try as we have. The people don't want to give any more money to you. We have a statutory obligation to fulfill these particular criteria here. So not only are we not going to be able to give you a raise, a pay cut is coming your way."
Well, what I said, I got up at that first budget meeting and I said, so you're considering whether you should receive raises as merit pay. I said, I tell you what, I'll even consider this along with you if you can get drop in salary as demerit pay for things like backing the junk ordinances that lost by 80%.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Wait a minute. We only recognize virtuous things that people do in government. We never ever recognize bad things that people do. You know what? In any other job,
we recognize employees. You can applaud for them. As soon as we're done applauding for the employees, no more applause in this auditorium.
That's right. Yes, and there is no other business that would operate in that way. Where they only bump people up. They never, bring people in and reprimand them and say, you're not going to get your increase this year because look at what you did. Oh, and by the way, one more slip up like that and you're fired. That's how they do it in the real world.
Or if we have a couple of mottos for the show, one of them is follow the money, but another one is, you go, well, that's interesting. Follow through on it. But another one is we're on our own. And so we're the ones that are handing them their pink slips. It's already worked with Cheryl. It's already worked long term, if he keeps his word. Right, I'm waiting. From Simon Hare saying after 2 years he's done. Mm-hmm. If his wings are clipped and he's not allowed to go to all of these things representing himself and parenthetically us, he's not going to want to stay. Why would he stay? What, I can't go to these meetings and act like the big commissioner? No more. Well, that guy's gone, I think. Anyway, and Keith, well, we'll just see about Keith. The Daily Courier sure loves him.
Yeah. Woo-hoo.
Yep. Love the fact that you say that these guys were inserting words into your mouth in a meeting where you had your own recording of it and they couldn't possibly have done that. That's just real.
You know what? Listen, this is a very interesting thing about the Courier, endorsing Keith Heck.
Wow.
This tells you how accurate their reporting is on their reporting is basically absent most of the time for what goes on at a weekly business session or just things that the commissioners do, but for them to, after the last 4 years of watching this guy and his behavior and his contempt for people, for them to endorse him, what value is there in their endorsement? And what is their motivation for their endorsement? This is what you should be wondering. Yes.
Well, okay. So one of the scenarios, and it doesn't mean this is true. I mean, okay, it's just an opinion. They've picked the two people from both, the four people, they've picked the two people from both sides that they'd like to see run off against each other. Here's one scenario, and feel free to shoot it down, you guys, all of our viewers. They're picking Keith Heck because he's got one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. And they're also picking Dan DeYoung. No surprise, of course. The Daily Courier wants the same kind of leadership, I'm reluctant to use that word, that they get from Dan DeYoung on the city council.
Right.
And so they'd love to see those policies carried forward into county government, including, and especially including, raise your rate, raise your rate, raise your rate, raise your rate, ignore the people, down talk them, say, I haven't heard any solutions, nobody's interested in public safety. You've got to have that. So they would love to see a straw man up against their favorite candidate.
Right.
Now,
that analysis completely accurate.
Now,
that's my.
Here's the other thing. Now, I'm not saying I feel this way, but you look at the major candidates on the other ticket, and they like Lily Morgan. Well, no surprise. City council, right? And they're saying the person they would like to see run against Lily Morgan is Ron Smith. Ron Smith.
Yeah, and listen, I think that I think personally they don't want Ron Smith at all. But they had to pick one of the candidates to be in there. And listen, if I were Ron Smith, I'd be running around touting that I got the endorsement too. But the bottom line is that the Courier doesn't want Ron Smith. They don't want anything to do with Ron Smith. What they want is Lily Morgan. And so is as soon let's say that the fantasy came true. What they're trying to do is pick our candidates for us. Okay,
absolutely.
And I'm not saying Ron Smith is a bad candidate. I'm not saying that at all.
It might mean that they think that he is. They really think that Ron Smith is maybe the equivalent of Keith Heck. What?
Well, no. What they think is that. They had to pick somebody, and I don't know what their criteria for picking somebody on that.
Bill Hooker would be a good candidate, in my opinion.
Right, I agree, but right, but what I think happened there is that they go, okay, we have to choose somebody, and then as soon let's say that the fantasy comes true, and those two get past the primary. Immediately, what's going to happen is the Courier is going to turn their guns over and start firing on Ron. I know they would, because listen, he has said. Now it's funny because they say in that, in the endorsement there, they say, well, he recognizes that there's a funding problem, But I've heard Ron Smith say he's not for a levy at all. Right. And so they will turn that nice talk that he recognizes that there's some kind of an issue into he's not for the levy, he's no good, and that's mark my words that if they get their way, that is what will happen.
Wow.
So if you like Ron, then be ready for that and be ready to counter that somehow. And if you like Keith Heck, be ready to counter it because they're going to sacrifice him to the wolves if they get their way on their little pick on that thing there.
So in the meantime, Mark Seligan has been having this running gun battle with the Ivy News, and he
Mm-hmm.
was on the Ivy uh, Illinois Valley and Cave Junction Facebook site. I just can't spend such time on Facebook all the time, and he said something about Annette Rausch, who's one of the reporters for IV News, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
for them. And she had said a bunch of things that were really pretty opinionated, very similar to the points of view of the Courier and their political guy who writes, and, really there's only one right way to do everything, and that's their way. And Mark disagrees vehemently and says so on there. And he goes back and forth with Annette Rausch. And at one point there, she says, well, then from now on, I'm just going to refer to you as a-hole. Okay, but the whole word.
Yeah.
And he was like, well,
Yeah.
now, wait a minute. That's kind of rude. On Facebook, it's kind of rude. And from a reporter representing a publication, that's kind of rude. And you really ought to take that back. And so they go back and forth a little bit on that. And then Dan Mancuso, the editor of the IV News, comes in and is defending his reporter. But what defense is there for that guy? It's like Cheryl Walker saying it's okay that the airport's manager says to somebody, F you, F this, F that, and then after he's been admonished, he comes back and says, yeah, well, she wagged her finger at me, but I'm doing it again, aren't I? Ha ha. No, that's not the right way to be, in my opinion. So he says something to Mark Seligman about, that sounded ominous. Well, that was finished today. In that this editor of the IV News has declared that from now on, if Mark Seligman wants to put any kind of political advertising for himself, for his candidacy in the IV News, he's banned.
Wow. Well, and Mark also has his landscaping business out there. I wonder if they're banning his business. Wow. Yeah, you know what? I have very little appetite for reading through the tit for tat on a Facebook posting that's a mile and a half long.
Right. This is a newspaper editor, and we're talking about money here, and we're not just talking about running for office. We're talking about advertising your services in your local newspaper. And right. We both know that Catherine Austin wrote a nice letter to the editor of the IV News, Dan Mancuso, saying good things about Inside News, this show. And he said, well, you obviously see that I'm not going to be running that letter. And the only reason he would do that is because he doesn't like this show. But she wrote a letter to the editor.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? And listen, I didn't read the entire thread, but what I did read, I read the original post, and I understand why Mark would have an argument with it. And Mark having an argument, that's like him waking up in the morning. I mean, that's what he does.
Feistiness, as long as it's not overwhelming. But yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Right. So, essentially, it was, the topic was, some people have proposed a law enforcement district out there that, covers some of CJ and perhaps some of the outlying areas. And that's just a bad idea. It's not going to work. We need to continue on in our attempts to try and get a levy passed countywide, because somehow if they did it just in a CJ, it would cost too much money. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you don't want to pay for your own policing. You want other people to pay for your policing. And,
isn't that all this? Yes.
Yeah, it's no good unless you have everybody paying for an increased benefit for us. Now, I guarantee you could add $5 million to the sheriff's budget, and the service in the outlying areas would not have a market improvement. You would have, because we've had them with $10 million more than they're getting right now, and we all remember what it's been like here. If you live outside the city limits in the greater county, you're on your own, and we all understand that. If you call the sheriff and you need somebody to come out and there's some life-threatening thing, the chances are it's going to be 40 minutes or longer.
What one of the writers at the Medford Mail Tribune said to Mark, according to Mark, was that Dan Mancuso of the IV News, he can't do that because you can't take money from some people running for office and not offer, some kind of equivalent ad to somebody else. But what Kevin Whittison, according to Mark Seligman of the Daily Courier, said is there's no such rule. We can do it if we want to.
Right. Exactly.
Now, there used to be a rule that's no longer enforced on radio stations because they're using the public's airwaves, and they must offer equal time to all comers. They don't.
That was the fairness doctrine.
The fairness doctrine, right? Because you're using our airwaves.
Yeah.
They don't really do that anymore, although they make gestures in that direction. And KJO did offer similar time to each one of the candidates. And I just told them, look, I won't need anybody to prompt me with questions. I think I can handle 10 minutes. Just tell me when I've got 30 seconds left. But others kind of relied on that, what are you going to do about this terrible emergency? What kind of permanent solutions do you offer? I don't want to be asked that question. That's something that we've already dealt with on this show. So, it's this whole thing is kind of interesting about the pairings that have been made for people who are going to run for office. This is a show about politics and about how people are acting when nobody is watching, the definition to me of integrity, about how the media fit into all this. Are they being fair or not fair? I think in most cases not fair. Well, we're the only ones that are showing all of the all of the candidates' forums and letting them speak for themselves. And we're mightily holding back from making any comments about them, except maybe about the commissioners, etc. We're coming down to a conclusion at some point here. Now, I just had a conversation today with Stu Sinnott. I think Stu is probably going to run, I've mentioned this before on the show, so I'm not giving anything away here. I think he's probably going to run for Simon Hare's seat in 2 years. Well, I think everybody and their brother is going to be running against Simon Hare.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to actually run against Simon. According to him, he's not going to run.
Right. It'll just be a bunch of newbies.
So, but we know for sure, I think that we can pretty much predict who else is going to run for that seat. Okay, so here's the list. Jump in at any point, Mike.
Okay.
Mark Seligman's going to run for that seat.
I think that's a safe bet. Unless he gets elected this time,
Right. Tony Webb is going to run for that seat.
Yes. If she is not elected this time, she will definitely run for that seat.
She wants a government job. Nathaniel Duarte. This was his toe in the water. Okay. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. You know what? You never know with a guy like that, because I find him to be a pretty smart kid. He's got a company of his own already. The chances are he's going to be making some pretty good money probably in the next couple of years, no matter what he's doing. And, if he's making enough money to where being a commissioner is a downgrade in pay, he may just pass on that. We'll see. Well, it's going to take a lot of time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It would take a lot of time to be a commissioner. It would take a lot of time to be a city councilor, Grants Pass city councilor. Boy, what a huge use of time that is. So any of the other candidates are out there today that you think that if they don't make it through this, that they're going to be back again? What do you think, Mike?
Boy, I you know what? I really don't know. I think you mentioned all the regulars.
Right. Paul Walter might run again.
Yeah, Paul Walter. Yeah.
Yeah, right. There are a couple other people who can be pretty sure, and they're probably right, that they could do as least as good a job as Simon Hare can on honesty, integrity, and those kinds of things.
Right.
But looking at who knows what's happening at the county commissioners meetings, okay, so this sounds blatantly self-serving, but the truth is, at this exact moment, there's nobody else that's in county government that knows more about what they do on a daily basis than I do at this exact moment. Now, that's not going to last forever, and this is just a blip in time, and pretty soon, you know, it's the Jurassic period or whatever. And so that's true. Who else has been, who else won't need that famous 9 months to 1 year worth of training that's going to be offered by Simon Hare? Who else falls into the category of having a pretty good idea of what's going on? I'd say, well, to me, one of them is Stu Sinnott. Anybody else? Bill Hunker, if he doesn't make it through. There's you. There's a couple of people that we see in the audience on a fairly regular basis. I mean, if people really are following through on this, we do know some people. We definitely know some people who are following through on everything that's happening and quoting all the time and occasionally even writing a letter to the editor, but they're not going to run for office.
Well, I don't know why not, you know.
Well, yes, you do.
Only I do?
You do?
Well, I know why I didn't jump into it. But I don't know why, or, you know, listen, I would encourage more people. I think, you know, being in local politics, I think a lot of people look at it in the same way that they look at perhaps rewiring an electrical outlet without any prior experience in doing such things.
Wow.
That they, you know, that electricity kind of intimidates them a little bit and they don't want to mess with that. Even though if you talk to them about the issues, they got a firm grasp of it and everything that's going on. And I think what people need to do is lose this mysticism of you know, that, you know, you need to be some special kind of person to be involved in politics.
It's promoted by Simon Hare on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Keith Heck could never get away with promoting that idea, but Simon does.
Yeah. Well, I just wish more regular people would get involved in it. You don't have to, you know, I personally find that even though Simon makes himself very familiar in a way that he can just spew out a lot of words, you know, it's like a fog in the air, and it clouds the issue more than it gives clarity. And you know, it would be far easier if you just have some regular guy going, here's point A, point B, point C, and you know, here's how it all works. And, you know, anybody got any questions about that? He's not interested in whether or not he's educating anybody on this stuff. He's, you know, pontificating for everybody to consume. And, you know, I just,
there are times when I've talked to this guy on the sidewalk or listened to him at one of the regular meetings. And I'm just, honestly, I'm just in awe of his encyclopedic knowledge of certain aspects of especially things like sustained annual cut and all the rest of that stuff. I'm going, well, quota. And wow, that's amazing. But he's not using those talents to represent the people. Some of the people are well represented by Simon Hare. liars and cheaters. But I mean, come on now. I mean, the guy.
47%.
Yes, absolutely. It's too bad, you know, and I've had this conversation with him several times. It's too bad that he can't turn his back on that. But remember, this is the guy that said with Carl Wilson and Rika Brown on Keijo. He said he was describing me, but also by extension Mike and other people that come to these meetings as gnats in the room. Gnats. Yeah. There's an imperial attitude for you, and that he liked Rika Brown's suggestion that they not allow us, certain of us, to speak ever again. Yeah. How great it would be to come back as a commissioner, buddy. How great that would be. But and Carl Wilson was laughing and agreeing with him and then Simon Hare said, I would like to see more support from the people to cut off their access to us.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's really bizarre. That's really bizarre. And you know, in their heart of hearts, they would all like to just be making these decisions from an ivory tower without even any participation from the public at all.
And that's what's happening with the city council. That's exactly what's happening. They've taken that final step. They pulled up the drawbridge. When they were there, and you guys all saw this, and they were summarizing this, Dan DeYoung was summarizing this, saying, obviously these people, it's a paraphrase, but you know what he said, obviously these people don't want any law enforcement. And Mayor Fowler said, I heard no good arguments at all. And then Mark Bartholomew said, we can revoke the vote of the people at any time. Now, during all of those conversations, who was sitting right there, buddy? Two of the candidates were sitting right there, participating and could have said, now, wait a minute. I don't believe that, but they didn't. They could have. Oh, well, now I have a different attitude. Well, I want to believe that because I kind of like you. And I kind of like Dan DeYoung, too. You know, he's a personable guy. He's a jolly guy. He comes up and shakes your hand and is happy to see you.
Oh, good. Great to see you. Yeah, and that makes you want to like the guy, and that is one of the reasons why the Courier is picking this guy. Because number one, he has let's all levy all the time. That's him, and you know, he's got a personality that people like, which Keith Heck does not.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. So that's a straw man. Come on, you guys. You know that it is.
Yeah,
but here's the weirdest part about Dan DeYoung is he says that kind of stuff and he's personable, and then following the sales tax, which was obviously to just about everybody else but the city council a really, really bad idea and bad for the whole state. We're so fortunate that we shut this thing down decisively and not on a close vote. But then afterwards he says that the people out there, basically, he says, the people are stupid. Now, wait a minute. That doesn't match with his hail fellow well met kind of personality. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird.
Well, we were going to talk today about the budget committee. But I personally found this conversation pretty interesting about inside politics.
It doesn't go very well with the take away the Titanic's lifeboats, though.
Yeah, but that follows very nicely from yesterday's title, Mayday.
Yes.
The message that Titanic sent out was the first time that message had ever been sent out, although everybody knew about it, SOS. Yeah. And fortunately, some people got on lifeboats, and some of them lived, and we've heard their stories. But not poor Jack. He didn't make it. He was a fictional character, but he drowned. So
yes.
So, Mike, tell us where you're going to be the next couple of days, if you don't mind, sir.
I'm going to be not around here. I have a business down in California, and So I got to run down there and take care of. It's not very glamorous, to be honest. I'm going to be spraying weeds, fixing culverts, with my Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund.
I was just thinking exactly the same thing. That's pretty funny. Okay.
Yes, and that sort of thing, and that's what happens when I have. I would really like to, and I hope that it comes true in the next year or so, that I no longer own any property in California, and I can say goodbye to it forever. I would probably only go down there to visit my mother if I didn't have business there. So.
Right.
So that's where I'll be the next couple of days, essentially.
Well, I'll be here the next couple of days, and we'll somehow make it through without Mike. That's okay, but the show will continue, and we'll make sure that you know some of the news. I might change it up a little bit and do some other little slightly more lighthearted thing for you folks, but we'll definitely get into seeing where the budget committee would not allow. My favorite thing, I got to play this again. I just have to play it again. When Margaret Goodwin is saying to them, well, look, here's yet another idea. And Simon Hare cuts her off and doesn't want to hear any more from her and wants to kind of move along. Yeah, well, she's on the budget committee. She has the right to speak, but not when Simon Hare is the chair. This is what's at stake. And if you like that kind of thing, then you've got a dozen candidates from which to choose that are going to carry through that same kind of policy. It's all up to you guys. It's up to you. It's up to your neighbors. And so Mike and I are going to say goodbye to you, the Go-Go's. Right? Yeah. Goodbye to you. And we will... I'll see you tomorrow night, and then Mike will be back here on Thursday for more hilarity that's going to ensue.
Yes.
Now, I've got a flickering monitor here, so I'm going to do the best that I can to shut this off. You guys can go now if you wish, but at some point here, I am trying desperately to get over here and pull this over so that I can see the right button. Here it is. Okay. I need to look over here. Sorry, guys. Okay. And now stop broadcast.